Good Monday morning. Today is September 20th. It is 9:06 in the morning, and we are back for Anchor Your Week. This is week number 32. We did meet last week, but we did not record it. So we have a special guest this morning, and he is no stranger to the Anchor family, and he is going to be sharing he's going to be answering some of the questions that some of our agents has had. This is Tim Gibson, qualified for the Circle of Excellence last year. He's already qualified for the Circle of Excellence this year. He's absolutely crushing it. So I'm excited to hear what he's going to teach us today. And before we turn it over, I do want to make you guys aware that starting in October, we're going to start a Back to Basics series on Monday mornings for Anchor Your Week. This is going to prepare us and catapult us to success for Q1 of 2022, and also make sure that we end the year strong for 2021. So the fourth quarter is almost upon us. So we want to make sure that we're ready, we're pushing, and we have a successful Q1 for 2022. So Tim, thank you for being here. Without further ado, take it over, share with us how you've had the success, answer those questions that we've had. The floor is yours.
Cool. Thanks, Cody. I had a couple weeks ago, I asked a question on Facebook to everybody about what do you want to talk about? What are some of the issues you're dealing with in your business? And Audrey, William, Will, and Kim, Craig, they all asked about dealing with sellers in this market and how to overcome some of the objections. And I think everybody's wanting to hop on board and seeing houses go for really high over asking price. The market's inflated, as we all know, and everyone's just, it's a money grab right now. So I think people, what's happening is, and Will mentioned it, sellers are wanting to say like, all right, well, let's say my house is worth 400,000. I think it's worth about 400,000. Let's list it for 450. And just see what happens. And that, we're seeing a lot of that stuff on the listing side of things. And what I'll do is just kind of talk about how I approach those type of situations specifically. And my way isn't the best way, of course, but it's worked for me in a couple of different situations. So what I like to do going back is any listing appointment I have, I bring three things. I bring comps for the house, recently sold comps for houses sold in the last 6 months, preferably in the neighborhood. If not in the neighborhood, then you go a half mile out, then you zoom out to a mile. It's got to be a very close comp, because you can throw a price out on a house, but you really want to do your research on the comps. So I bring a list of comps. I bring the listing services menu, which I've got that pulled up, and I'll share that with you guys in a minute. So you can see a lot of us have that. Some of you don't. And if you don't, then I'll kind of, maybe I'll let Cody talk about where that is on Canva, or somebody can share that in the chat, the link to that. And then the last thing I bring is a gift, something small like a gift card or a thank you card or something, just to show I really appreciate you letting me come into your house, take a look at it, tell you what I think it's worth, and just the opportunity to potentially list your house. So that's the three things I bring. And the objection that a lot of us are getting is, let's say, hypothetically, you've got a house in Forsyth County, it's a subdivision, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. And let's just say it's worth, based on what you see, you think it'll sell, a good listing price is about 400,000. Okay, so let's say your seller goes, okay, well, I know that you think it would be a good listing price at 400,000, but I really want 450 out of it. And in your mind, in that moment, you're sitting at the table and you're going, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I get it. Like, people are getting a lot of money for their houses, but to just tack on an extra 10+% doesn't really make a lot of sense. So there's a couple ways I try to handle that. The first would be, okay, I get it. I know it's a crazy seller's market. I know that a lot of people are getting a lot of money for their houses, but based on these comps, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, What I see is that a good listing price is 400, and here's why. Okay, and then I'll show them the comps. I'll show them, and then I may even print out or pull up the listings, the recently sold listings on FMLS, so I can show them the house that sold for whatever price that supports the comp, right? So, say it's got granite countertops, backsplash, whatever, nice finishes, and it's comparable to their house. I say, well, okay, well, these two look similar, your house and this house sold for 400. So why would someone pay $50,000 more for yours over this one that sold 3 months ago, right? That's one thing I can do. The other thing I'll say is there's two different ways to approach the listing price of your house. Number one is we could list at or just below. And when I say just below, if like the example house is 400,000, let's say, I would say, all right, well, let's list it at 399. I don't mean like $25,000 below what I think the list price should be. The first example would be, all right, let's list it at or just below comp value or whatever we think the list price is. And more than likely in this market, it's going to get bid up. It's going to go over asking price. So would you rather list it where I think it should be listed, or based on what the comps say, and let it get bid up to 410, 415, 425, whatever? Or would you rather list it at 450 and have it drop down to 425, 415, or 410? You're at the exact same price, but the psychology is the exact opposite. When you list it at comp value and you get bid up over asking price, you feel like you're winning, right? But if you list it high and it comes down 25,000, right? You feel like you're losing. You feel like you lost $25,000, right? So, but at the end of the day, if you end up at 425 grand, then what does it matter, right? Wouldn't you rather take it at comp value than let it get bid up? And even if it's 10,000 over, whatever, hey, you feel like you won, right? So the psychology is different. I say, hey, look, you can pick. I mean, I don't set the price. You don't set the price. The market sets the price. The market will really quickly tell you what the market thinks of the price of this house. Okay. So if you want to list it high, I'm happy to do that. These are some of the issues you're going to run into, X, Y, and Z. Okay. And if you want to take that route, I'm happy to do that because I ultimately work for you. But I don't want you to feel like you're losing money when you have to drop the price, because this is what's going to happen. Okay. So sometimes people will take that advice and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they go, you know what? I'm just going to list it high. I'm like, okay, well, we can do that. But I'm just telling you, just to remind you, these are the things that can happen. You can run into appraisal issues. There's all kinds of, and we know a lot of those issues that could happen. And I just try to lay it out to them logically and say, it's your choice, but if it was me and it was my house, I would rather list it at what the market says it should be listed at, and then let it get bid up. Why not? You know what I mean? Even if it goes at 400, in the example house, you're still doing great, right? That's the baseline. Anything above that is just gravy, right? So that's kind of the way I look at it. And the other thing I tell them too is, Cindy just mentioned nobody likes greedy sellers on the chat, which is true. And I tell them, look, in this market, especially in the under 500 price point, even under 600 in certain areas, the house is going to go fast, and it's likely to go for at asking price or over asking price. But if you grossly overprice your house, it's going to sit. And the longer your house sits, the price is not going to go up. The price is going to go down. The longer it sits, the more people think, well, what's wrong with this? The longer it sits, the more people think, okay, well, this house is overpriced. These people are greedy. They want to just get every dollar they can. And so when a house sits in this market for 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 30 days, people go, what's wrong with the house? When you get a bunch of people asking what's wrong with the house, the list price is not going to go up, and it's not going to go for asking price. We all know that. But sometimes people have to learn the hard way. It's like when I tell my kids, all right, you can do what I tell you to do, or you can experience the negative consequences of what I told you is going to happen. It's up to you, your choice. If you want to learn the hard way, that's fine. I mean, I don't say it exactly like that to a seller, but I just say, okay, if you want to do it this way, that's fine. But, another thing too, is if you've got a seller that wants to list high and it's obviously high and it's not going to sell for whatever that price is, I'll say a new thing I want to start doing is saying, okay, you think this house should be listed at 450. I think it should be listed at 400. I will list it at 450 if you're set on that. But within 2 weeks, if we do not get an offer, we will drop the price and I will put it in the listing agreement to 425. Or, this is obviously just an example. And then 2 weeks after that, or another week after that, or whatever you decide, if it doesn't get sold again, if we don't get a good contract again, then we need to drop it again. Because obviously the market doesn't support this price, right? So then that way you've got a plan going forward, not just let's just see what happens, because I've been known to do that before, just go like, yeah, let's listen and just see what happens. And then ultimately, it does get dropped. But if you set that expectation up front, then they know you mean business, and you're cool to let them play around and try that high price point, but you also say, look, this is the deadline for this price point, 2 weeks or whatever. So that's kind of it for dealing. One more thing is, whenever people bring up something like, oh, well, you want to drop the price so it sells faster, and I feel like I'm losing money, right? Because we've all heard that before too. Okay. Again, say they want to list at 450, you think it should be listed at 400. I say, all right, look, I get that, but you have to think of it this way. The market sets the price again. If it sits at that high price, 450 or whatever, then you have to drop it to 425 and it sells at 425. You did not lose $25,000 because the market was never going to pay you 450 for this house. So it was never money lost. That is $25,000 that never should have been tacked onto the list price anyways. And sometimes I can help people, rationalize like, okay, well, I get that. So, it's a tough thing because people think that they can just throw out any price on their house and people are going to pay it, which isn't necessarily the case. So that's what I've got for the dealing with difficult sellers. Of course, if y'all have any questions or want to chime in, feel free. This can be as interactive as possible. Cody, do you have anything you want to add? You look like you wanted to say something.
No. I mean, you've touched on great points, right? And one of the notes that I added on the side is emotions make people act, right? So we can have the logic conversations, we can have that, and it makes them think. But if you want them to act, we've got to bring the emotion. If you're looking to sell your house quickly, why are we going to list it high when we're going to have to go into this market with a contingent sale, right? So now we're getting them back to a realistic number of, all right, well, we need it to sell. You've got to work with me. My job is to sell your house and help you find another one. But if we're not working together, my job is going to be more difficult. Now, are you going to have that conversation with the seller? Probably not. But emotions make people act. So bring in the emotion, bring in that side of it. And then the price reduction schedule is absolutely phenomenal. If you aren't able to come to an agreement and you work with them, then you sit at the listing at the table, filling out the listing agreement and say, listen, we're going to do, if we have a ton of showings within a 10 to 14 day window and no offers, and we get feedback that it's high, then we are going to reduce it X amount. And so you've already had that conversation. So when the time comes, you've already solidified that, you know what, Tim was right, probably should have listened. Now we've already have the price reduction scheduled and it's in writing and you have their signature on it. So great points, Tim. Cool,
thanks. And the other thing too is commission. I didn't cover commission, but if there's a commission question, which, obviously you have to cover that with them. I share the listing services menu in the chat, but what I do is I offer 3 tiers, and Cody and I have talked about this, and some of y'all do this too, but I have 3 tiers. And there's a 5% commission and you get bare bones. There's a 6% commission rate where you get a very, a very solid package of marketing and some other stuff. And then I have a 7%. So if they want to sort of like the platinum package, then they can go ahead and go for that 7%. The other thing I'll mention is if someone is going to buy with me, and Cody talks about this too, if they're going to use me to buy their new house and they want me to list their current house, I always offer a 1% discount. So it's usually on the listing side. You could do it on either side, however you want to do it. And that also will help, of course, if they're like, if they think, okay, well, I do need to buy another house. If you list this one and I say, hey, look, I'll give you a deal on the sale, I'll give you 1% back. And sometimes that helps. And then I always try to put that into dollar terms. So I go, hey, I'll give you 1%. And, it might be a little bit abstract to people. So I'll say, look, if your house sells for 400,000, I'm taking 4,000 out of my side of the commission and I'm giving that to you. So that's $4,000 that you won't have to pay out at closing. So you could do 1%, Brian, you could do 1% on the buy or the sell. I usually do it on the sell, but either way. The other thing real quick that Stephanie asked about was back end, I think it's basically like back end business admin stuff. Like taxes. And Stephanie, do you want to expand on that? Do you have any, I think it was like taxes, bookkeeping, forming an LLC, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think really it was just, how you're keeping your back end stuff organized. I know this past year when I did taxes, I did have an LLC, but it wasn't for the entire year. And I ended up paying out a lot more than I anticipated paying out. We have some friends that run a business, but they do it more of a sub corp rather than an LLC. And I was just curious kind of how you guys are running. If you are doing an LLC, what are you doing on your back end to keep that kind of information straight, but also on your client side? Like, are you running a spreadsheet of who your clients are, when they closed? Are you sending them follow-ups for, a year after they bought their house? Just what you're doing to keep your business straight on the back side. I feel like I know how to do a lot of those things, but I don't do a lot of those things. We all get wrapped up in our busy season and we kind of let some things fall off. And I think that is an area where I could probably use some pointers, and I'm sure some of the newer folks here could use some pointers as far as just keeping their business organized.
Yeah, that's great. So number one is keeping track of clients. I mean, of course, I think that's obviously the most important. I do have a spreadsheet. It's a Google sheet. I've got one for every year, every sale. And this is only closed clients that I'm keeping track of on this. But what I do is, and I'm looking at it, I've got the client's name, whether they were a buyer or a listing, or a buyer or a seller, where the lead came from. So is it from my gym? Is it from my church? Is it wherever? Is it a referral from somebody else? The address of the house they closed on, the date, the purchase price. And then I call it my commission calculator. So I've got the gross commission, any other expenses I have, transaction coordinator, whatever, out of that. Then I keep track of my broker fee, my FMLS fee, and then I've got my net commission and my average sale price in that sheet. And I've got one for every year. So I can kind of keep track of where the leads are coming from, where the clients are coming from, how many listings I have versus how many buyers I have. And it's just like a clear picture of for my business, how I'm able to run it, how everything's working. And that's how I keep track of all the clients, Stephanie. And I can share this if anybody wants it. I can make a template out of it if anybody wants a copy of it. And then as far as bookkeeping, that's a big thing because you got to keep track of your expenses. You have to, because obviously we all need a lot of write-offs in a 1099 business. I do have an LLC, so I guess that's one step above the bookkeeping. I do personally have an LLC, and really the main goal of having the LLC is to limit your personal liability. That's really what it is. You're not going to save a lot on taxes. you're going to have the same type of taxes you would if you were just just taking the commission checks and just depositing in your account. But the LLC adds a layer of protection. So if something happens, you screw up, you get sued or something, God forbid, then you have a legal entity that's being sued, not you personally. So that's the reason for the LLC. S Corp, I don't really know much about S Corp. I think that's a way basically to take your taxes, pay yourself a salary and all that stuff. So I don't really know much about S Corp. I've talked to my CPA about it and he's like, you're good, just doing a single number LLC. What else? Spreadsheet. Oh, bookkeeping. So I have a bookkeeper. It cost me almost nothing, but I have everything in QuickBooks. I use it online. QuickBooks Online is like, I don't know, $10 a month or something. I tried to do it myself and I like numbers and I could not figure it out. So one of my clients happened to be a bookkeeper and she does the books for her church. And I asked her if she would do it for me. She said yes. She charges me $50 an hour and it takes her 30 minutes to do my books every month. So I paid $25 a month to her. And the way I look at the back end business stuff as a whole is I don't want to do any more than I have to, because my job is to sell houses and to hire or sub out anything that doesn't apply to me selling houses, because that's time that I'm going to spend on something that's not actually making me money, right? So I hire a bookkeeper. She's awesome. I send her all my statements every month, any expenses, they all go to her. She reconciles everything. She sets it up. She handles all the profit and loss sheets, any of that stuff. And then I have a CPA because I don't know taxes. I don't want to know taxes. I don't want to spend the time to do my own taxes. So I have a CPA. I pay my CPA every month. He does our personal taxes and my business taxes. Whatever he charges me and whatever my bookkeeper charges me is worth their weight in gold, because I don't want to spend any time on that stuff more than I have to. And, any questions I have, I'll email my CPA like, hey, can I write this off? Can I do this? Can I do that? And he'll send me back an email real quick. Yes, no, whatever. So I try to build the business like a business so that I'm not doing all of the things that don't make money, because the only thing that makes money is selling houses, right? So that's kind of how I handle the back end. And taxes. I will say, just say you get a commission check for $5,000, save 30% of it. Have a savings account and put 30% of every single commission check into your savings account. You won't have to worry about taxes, because we're all going to pay a lot in taxes. There's just no way around it. That's just the way the laws are written, and self-employed people have to pay a lot in taxes. So it's a lot. Like my taxes last year, I was like, okay, like I've been self-employed my entire life. And I still was like, wow, I wasn't expecting it to be this much. But thankfully I'd saved 30% and I was fine. I was able to write the check, no big deal. The other thing is, because we're all self-employed, everyone here and everyone in the brokerage can open a self-employment IRA or a self-employed, it's called a SEP IRA, SEP. And you can contribute up to 25% of your after-tax business income into this account. That's a way for you to save on taxes and to pay yourself, because selling houses is awesome and making good money is awesome. But if you don't keep any of it, you're just going to be in the rat race, right? So that is another huge thing. So at the end of every year, I go to my CPA, I say, here's my profit and loss sheet from my bookkeeper. Here's all our taxes. Here's all my tax info for the business. How much do I owe in taxes? Cool. All right. What's the maximum amount that I can contribute to my SEP IRA? And he says, whatever the amount is. I'm like, cool. So then I pay my taxes and then I write a check or I deposit that exact amount into my SEP IRA. I'm good to go. So that's another back end thing that I'd recommend for everybody. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, I know this isn't an investment seminar or anything, and none of us can offer investment advice, but I can tell you to open a SEP IRA. Do it yesterday, because, we're all going to have to get to a point where we don't want to work anymore, right? Either we're going to have to or we're going to want to. So the quicker you do something like that, the better. So that's kind of it for everything, at least all the questions, Stephanie, that we kind of touched on. If there's anything else, I'm happy to answer. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else have any questions about anything, at least how I do it? I mean, obviously my way isn't the best way, but happy to help if there's anything else. If not, then we can be done, I guess. Anybody want to add anything? No?
I
Good?
would.
Okay.
Of course, it's me. I want to say what you were talking about earlier as far as sellers having unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I think that, I mean, we all struggle, right? A listing appointment is never just easy, no stress involved. We always get a little stressed about it. But I think as a new agent, that a lot of times people are afraid to not get the listing. Of course, we all want to get the listing, but I had an experience early on with a seller in my own neighborhood who I pulled up the comps. I conferred with Cody because I was still pretty brand new and went to the listing appointment. And the guy was as nice as he could be, but then he ghosted me. And I found out that it was because he thought I was wrong on the number. Even though I told him, we'll list it whatever you want, he didn't like hearing the number I had to give him. And in the end, I did not get the listing. A year later, he finally decided he was ready again. And he actually reached out to another agent in our brokerage who was also new at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They did agree on a price. Of course, the market was a lot more inflated by then. Agreed on a price, got right up to the closing. Had all the paperwork in order, found him a place to buy, and he dropped both sides of the transaction. No warning. I'm out. So just remember, if you do go to a listing appointment and you educate them, you tell them everything that Tim just went through, realistically, why this is the number for your house and what it means if you go above it. Just know if you don't get that sale, if you don't get the listing, it could be a blessing in disguise. You know, if these people are going to be a brick wall, you don't want to be beating that brick wall all the way to the closing table, because realistically, you're never going to make it to the closing table. If they can't open their mind and listen to the education you're getting them, you might not want to go down that path anyway. And it's the same thing if you do list at the price they want you to list at and you know it's inflated. If you don't have that price reduction in place that Tim just spoke about, you're going to run into a nightmare of them raising the price, raising it again, dropping it astronomically low, raising it again. And we've all been there with a buyer where we say, well, this house has been on the market for a while. We could probably offer under. They'll take anything at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the boat you're setting yourself up to be in. So just go in with confidence and know that you know what you're talking about. You know, Tim's been doing this for a while. He's been very successful about it. He's correct in the way that he's telling everybody, you know, this is how you need to approach this, with just educating them. So just be confident in yourself and know that if you don't get every listing, we all want to get it. But if you get it by backing down and giving them the wheel, then you've lost control of your own business at that point, and it can become a nightmare quickly.
Yeah, true. I mean, and for those of you that are new, I know that every buyer and every seller feels like the end of the world. And what you have to understand is it's just not there. It's just not. Like, sometimes some of us go like, well, and I am very guilty of this early on. I would literally do anything for anyone at any time. I would go into situations knowing that this buyer is running me around. I don't know if they'll ever buy anything, or this seller doesn't have any intention of using me, and I would do it. Whatever, you know, the listing or whatever. And part of it was good training. Maybe some of it was unnecessary, but I want all y'all to know that there's so much business around where we are. It's literally everywhere. So don't think that if you lose a buyer or a buyer ghosts you, it happens all the time. Or a seller ghosts you, or, you know, you get a really good conversation, you show 2 or 3 houses and you submit a couple of offers, and then the buyer disappears, or they use another agent. That's happened to me too. That's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your business. It's not you're not going to starve. Okay. I mean, it might feel like it early on. I mean, trust me, I didn't sell a house for 6 months and it was a double wide. Okay. And then my next sale didn't come for like another 4 months. Okay. So just know that if you keep doing it and if you keep doing the things that you know that you can do and that and serving your clients well, you will sell houses. It's going to happen. There's not a shortage of people looking to buy or sell or invest. There's just not. So just relax and know that you're going to be fine, and don't worry about people. You know, it's just going to have, people are flaky. You know, people change their minds mid-transaction. You know, people change their minds at the closing table. It happens. So that's my last bit of encouragement for y'all. Hopefully all this helped, and thanks for having me on today, Cody.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. I know you got to get to your CE. Great information. We're going to have this video up on YouTube, so you'll be able to go back and watch it if you want to revisit some of the things that Tim said. And we'll be live next Monday. We'll be here at 9 a.m. and we look forward to seeing you. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon.